Hi, I'm Leon, the founder of Audio Advice. This video is an overview of 3 outstanding turntable mats from Auditorium of Germany and SPEC of Japan. Aftermarket turntable mats have been around since the 70s, and as an accessory, vinyl lovers could add to their turntable with the goal being improved sound, updated appearance, and a reduction in static, or all 3. I think I remember the first one mat that I experienced was called a platter mat, way back in the late 70s. It was very thick and heavy and felt like a little piece of sticky silicone. Most turntables these days come with a stock felt mat or have a platter that is made out of a material that is designed to be used without a mat. Felt mats are the most dominant type of mat on the majority of turntables on the market. But felt mats have an inherent large problem, and that is static. The static charge on a felt mat will hold debris and dust on your mat, and of course some of that dust and debris can be transferred to your record when you put it down on the mat. During the colder and drier times of the year, static cling gets to be so bad a felt mat will stick to your record when you pull it up off the platter, which makes for a real pain to get it off without touching the surface of your record with our oily fingertips. There are all kinds of mats on the market using a wide variety of materials, such as rubber, cork, leather, recycled vinyl, different kinds of fabrics, and more. Some mats are even designed more as a decoration than a useful accessory. So if you do have a turntable with a felt mat and you're experiencing static issues, and who isn't, how do you choose the best one? It's actually a bit more complicated than you might think. Turntable mats can have a pretty decent impact on the sound, but it may be they just change it for the worse and not really make it better. There are a few things to consider. If your turntable came with an integrated tone arm, it is likely the engineers designing the turntable used the stock felt mat when they were doing their listening test. So there's an argument you don't want to make a major change in the materials used for your new mat. A more important consideration is the height of the turntable mat in comparison to the stock mat. As a general rule, you want your tone arm to be parallel to the record surface. Many turntables do not give you the ability to raise or lower the height of the tone arm. This means if you switch out your mat for one that is a lot thicker, you're going to cause the back of the tone arm to be too low. If your tone arm can be adjusted in height, that is great. But if it cannot, you need to think about that before buying a mat that's a lot thicker than your stock mat. Finally, there's the weight of the aftermarket mat. For most turntables, this will not be a big consideration, as for a good number of turntables, the platter does not sit on any kind of special suspension system. But if your turntable does have a spring suspension system, getting a mat that's far too heavy, or a clamp for that matter too, can change the resonance point of your turntable. Now bear in mind that records themselves vary in weight from around 100 grams to 230 grams, so fairly lightweight mats are okay. But some aftermarket mats weigh several hundred or even greater than 1,000 grams, which can affect the suspension system of your turntable. Since the main culprit of static is a felt mat, I decided to look at several felt mats of various turntables and find out their average thickness. Most of the flimsy ones, which are the type prone to static buildup, average about 1.5 millimeters thick. I also found the average weight of a typical felt mat to be around 30 grams. With these important considerations in mind, I set out to find some great performing turntable mats that should work well for most turntables while improving the sound and eliminating all the annoying static issues. The first and least expensive is the Auditorium 23 mat. Auditorium 23 is a German company that has been around for quite a long time. Their main business is very expensive speakers, mostly using a horn type design. They also make phono step-up transformers and cables. There's virtually no information available about the composition of their 2 mats. Even the company who imports them into the US could not tell me anything about them other than they experiment with different materials and use listening tests to come up with the best sound. The Auditorium 23 mat at first glance looks like a normal felt mat. I weighed and measured all of these, and the great news, it's very close in weight and thickness to almost every stock felt mat on the market. It only weighs 56 grams and is 1.1 millimeters thick, which is really close to the average felt mat thickness of 1.5 millimeters and weight of 30 grams. This means you'll not have to adjust your tone arm height or worry about it being too heavy. All great news. This mat is definitely two-sided. The top side has an ever so slightly raised crosshatch pattern on it. If you look closely, you can see each of the crosshatches has a woven pattern in it, and the area around them has a different woven pattern. The back of the mat is flat with the same type of woven pattern you see in between the crosshatches on the top. This mat flops around a little bit less than a typical felt mat, but obviously with its unique construction, it's not just a standard felt mat. It does not feel as soft as a felt mat and almost feels like there's a tiny bit of stiffness woven into it. But since it's similar in material to a felt mat, it should be a perfect upgrade over your stock felt mat. I had 0 cases of this mat sticking to a record from static cling, which is great. It might tend to grab some of the dust that's on your record, but for some reason those tiny specks will stay on the mat and not transfer to another record, at least in my observation. I was able to brush these off with an inexpensive carbon fiber brush or the type of brush you might clean a pool table with. It was far easier to brush off than a regular felt mat. With the Auditorium 23 mat having almost identical physical characteristics to a stock felt mat, and the elimination of static cling and dust transfer, that alone makes it worth the price of admission for most turntables. But as an added bonus to my ears, it also improved the audio. I heard an improvement in dynamics and a bit more separation between instruments on some turntables, but on others the difference jumped out even more. Even if I had heard no change, if you have static problems and don't want to be concerned about changing the character of the design of your turntable, this mat is an outstanding choice. The best mat from Auditorium 23 is called their Homagemat. This one is made quite differently from the basic model. Again, there's no information available about its construction, but to the eye it appears to be made of 3 layers of material. There's what feels like a textured wool layer on the top and bottom with something that's probably stiff in the center. What that is, I don't know, but this mat does not flop around like a felt mat and is a little stiff, although it still easily bends. I think this is still a very good replacement for most felt mats with one small caveat. It does not weigh that much at only 100 grams, but it's slightly thicker than a typical felt mat at 2.5 millimeters thick. With this only 1 millimeter difference more than the average felt mat in thickness, it should work well on most turntables without needing to adjust the VTA unless you have a cartridge that's super sensitive to VTA changes, like one with a Shibata stylus. Just like with the other Auditorium 23 mat, I had no static problems with the mat sticking to the record, and this one does not seem to hold any dust or smaller particles either. The audio improvements I heard with the smaller version jumped out even more to me on this mat. Dynamics really came to life and the texture of voices improved quite a bit. I also felt like I was hearing less surface noise, although I cannot explain why. Obviously a mat in this price range is not going to find a home in a $400 to $600 turntable. But if you have a higher end turntable with a felt type mat, it's a great choice to get rid of static issues and improve your sound at the same time. The SPEC analog dish sheet mat was the most expensive of the bunch, but the price gets you some pretty big audio improvements. This mat is very stiff, yet quite thin like a stock felt mat. It is made of aluminum and it is coated with a special material the people at SPEC claim is very similar to the material used on the master stamper for a record. It actually feels ever so slightly soft to the touch and is in a matte finish. You want to be careful with it, just brush it off as any cleaner with alcohol will damage the resin in the outer finish. The SPEC mat is heavier than the other two, but still not crazy heavy like some mats, as it weighed in at 230 grams. When I put this on a Lin LP12, which has a suspension system, I didn't notice any change in the deflection of the suspension system, so it's probably light enough to use on most sprung turntables. It's also very thin at 1.7 millimeters, so you could add it to any turntable and not have to really worry about VTA. I had 0 static or dust capture problems with the SPEC mat at all. It seems perfect in that regard. There's one thing about it that took some getting used to. It's slightly larger in diameter than a record. You have to learn a new way to lift the disc off the turntable, but once I got used to it, it came naturally. With the SPEC mat, I did not hear any reduction in surface noise, but boy did the dynamics improve. It felt like this was taking me closer to a live performance, as you could hear subtle volume changes easier in instruments and voices giving you more of that you are there feeling. I see the SPEC mat being used on more expensive turntables that came with a felt mat for users who are looking to take their sound to the next level, or if you have a turntable that's designed to not be used with a mat, this one will probably offer an improvement over the stock platter. I was really happy to find these 3 mats and be able to deliver them to all of our vinyl lovers out there. For most people, the basic Auditorium 23 mat will be the best choice. But if you have a nicer turntable rig, you should consider the better ones. And the best part about them all is no more static cling. Keep in mind when you buy from Audio Advice, not only do you get free shipping, lifetime support, and a price guarantee, but you'll also receive our exclusive tips and tricks setup guides to get you up and running in no time. If you're thinking about updating your turntable setup, be sure to check out audioadvice.com, where you'll find more reviews, product comparisons, and our blog where you can browse all of our tips and tricks videos. If you have any questions or want more info, be sure to give us a call, chat with us, or stop by one of our award-winning showrooms, and we'll be happy to help you out. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel so you never miss the latest audio and home theater content. We'll see you next time.